All right, church, now we've got Mike Norman here. He's going to share his story. You might have seen him in church a few weeks. He's been here recently, and Mike's got a great story to share. And Mike, I know as I read your story, it was quite intriguing, and it starts all the way back when you were a little kid. So tell us a little bit about your childhood and what you went through.
All right. So I grew up in a Christian home. My mom and dad were both believers for many years, and but even despite that, they still had some troubles in their marriage, and they ended up divorcing when I was about 3 years old or so. So my mom and I moved up here late 80s, and she was a full-time teacher, so she worked really long hours and just raised me and got a lot of help and support from friends and neighbors, but she had to work really hard. And so I had a great childhood though, and all of our needs were met. And but I came to know the Lord actually pretty young myself. My mom was very outspoken, but very quiet and tender person too. And
You were raised in church, though? You all went to church? Or?
we did. Unfortunately, because my mom was divorced, she actually was kind of turned away by a lot of churches in the area at the time.
That's sad.
She's had great experiences since then, though, but it didn't start out easy. But I just remember she was kind of getting me ready for bed one night, and I asked some question, I don't remember what it was, but something to prompt her, and she just very simply just kind of walked through who Jesus is and what he that he died and rose again for us. She explained it to me as when you lie, well, that's kind of a sin, and I could get that at 5 years old, and we went through the talk, and I knew he died for me, so I accepted him in the bathtub with my mom at 5 years old. So
wow, in the bathtub at 5 years old? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So simple story, but I'll never forget it. So I knew he was my savior, and
did you get water baptized at the same time?
Yeah, technically so. With soap.
I just wonder.
With soap and rubber duckies, I think.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
it's kind of an interesting baptism.
5 years old. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and So anyway, I knew who God was, and but I just didn't have that kind of aha salvation moment that I know a lot of us have when we first meet Him. So. Growing up still affected by the divorce and everything, I really went through a lot of depression, even as a young child. I was suicidal for many years.
Even as a young child?
Even as a young child, yeah. Would fantasize about it.
Yeah.
I would jump from high places, all sorts of weird stuff. And I just couldn't find peace. So.
It's interesting because many people think that as soon as you find Jesus, that you would never have that thought again. But that's just really not true.
Yeah.
We have to be careful when we're talking to people out in the world and in the streets, that just because they say they go to church and just because they do, you might even see them in church.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're not struggling internally, and we've got to be really sensitive to that.
Yeah, and I'd like to think that He gave me the strength or protected me so that I would not be successful in any attempt. So,
as I read your story, there's obviously a reason why you're here today. So, So you're going through your childhood with a lot of depression. How'd you get out of that? What's going on?
So, I kind of used to look at God as sort of a taskmaster, and we were here to serve Him, but there wasn't really a reciprocal relationship. We kind of just did what we were supposed to because it's our duty, so to speak. And so every summer, my dad, he's a traveling musician, and he traveled to Europe a lot. And so we did various tours over the years. But I had a really special experience when I was about 8 years old. So in '93, he did a tour in Holland, and he had one show at this club that was kind of recovered by an organization. It used to actually sell pot at the club and everything because it's the rules were different.
Yeah, they were different back then. Yeah.
So, but it was recovered, and it was kind of a new way to reach out to people in different parts of their addiction recovery. And so he played his show, and some people were interested and talked to him, and we spent some time outside talking to some people, and we would just kind of pray with each person, learn a little bit about their story. But there was one particular person I remember talking to. She was a 14-year-old girl, and we kind of approached her like anybody else and just said, "What brought you here?" and "What's your story?" And she told me that when she was 12 years old, that her parents just were done with her, and they kicked her out of the house, and she was scared. She had no idea what to do, and some man found her on the road and just started selling her basically to people, and also so she wouldn't run away, he got her hooked on heroin, and so she was just a slave to this really harsh drug that was really kind of eating at her.
And now, how old was she? 14?
She was 14, homeless since 12, and it was just it was an awful story, and we were talking a little bit further, and she said that she was really scared because she had seen a doctor, and this doctor had told her that she had contracted an STD from one of her clients, and that she would be dead in a few months.
Wow.
And
at this time, you're 8?
Yeah, I was 8 years old.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
It's way above my head, or what I would be expected to understand.
Yeah.
But she was not much older than me, and I just could see the fear. So, we just talked with her. We prayed with her, just prayed for hope and healing in her life, and it was a really moving experience. Really changed my life.
Yeah. So now you get past this, and it obviously had an impact on you, emotionally and in every way. Now at this time you're still young, and you said you're fighting depression. Did this story of this girl, did it motivate you to change in any way? What did this girl do to you?
Yeah. So I was really stirred up by this story, and a few months later we heard that she had passed away.
So she did pass away.
Yeah. And it's healing and how God works. It's all a mystery, and His will in all things. But she passed away. But it really impacted me, and even at 8 years old, I just felt this calling of I need to serve people like her. And I knew I could do it here in Oregon or wherever I was. I didn't have to be a traveling missionary or anything, but she represents people that are disenfranchised, underserved, ignored.
And there's people like that right in our backyard. We don't even know it.
Yeah. And so it was a really it was a call for me. And just over the years, I fought through my depression and things, and there's a whole other story which we don't have time for today. But eventually it gave me my calling, and it made me fight through all my challenges, and I held on to God through everything. And it basically brought me to where I am today.
And so now you've got this mission, basically, because of this girl and the impact she had on your life. And when you see her actually pass away, now you've got this mission from God to go and touch these people.
Right.
And so now where does that bring us today? Now we're in 2016, we're in Salem, Oregon. There are girls like that everywhere, still today, even right here in Salem, Oregon. And now here you are.
Right.
Surely this story, back when you were 8 years old, had everything to do with what you're doing today. So what are we doing today?
Yeah, so basically, as a teenager, I found out there was this thing called social work, which I never heard of. But I just thought if I could get paid to help people, then I could devote my whole life to that.
Yeah.
I know you can relate to that as well. So I went to school, and I actually started here in Chemeketa, and worked my way up to Portland State. So I have a bachelor's in social work now, and also a master's in public administration with some nonprofit education too, so I can understand how government, nonprofit, and private sector all work together to serve people. So that's my education. And I've been in social work for 10 years now. I've worked with children, families, the homeless population. But what really captured me a couple years ago was this thing called Pole Gems in Salem. And they reach out to adults who probably had stories very similar to this girl. So Pole Gems does monthly outreach, which Connection Life Church is
Yeah.
a part of as well, where we bring gifts to them to just remind them that they're loved and valued.
Yeah.
And it's not because of what they can offer a client and their
Right.
services. It's just who they are and who God
Right.
made them.
Right.
And over time, they trust us and they start to reach out for counseling and job skills and mentoring and empowerment.
Yeah.
And these women's lives get changed every
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
And so I don't go into the clubs. It's only women serving women, but I'm part of the operations part,
Sure.
and I just help people do that work.
Mike does a lot with Pole Gems, and he'll be very humble about it, but he does a lot for Pole Gems. I have the privilege now of sitting on the board and working with Mike in this, and we've seen girls touched.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
week in and week out. Our outreaches are monthly, but the extension of our arms are daily, right? So we're getting messages from people and emails from girls that are looking for help. And you said something, Mike, how we're giving them gifts to remind them that they're loved.
Yeah.
And the reality is just like that 14-year-old girl, they only feel abused and used. They don't feel loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to give them a gift, it's not to condone what they're doing, but to combat this feeling that
Right.
no one really loves us. They just want to use us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so here a guy like you comes in and contributes to an organization like Pole Gems, and we give them gifts to show them that they actually truly are loved.
Yeah.
Tell us real quickly a story about a success from that ministry that you're aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So about a year ago, a woman reached out to us, and she just wasn't going to be able to provide Christmas for her kids. And so all of us at Pole Gems rallied together, and we got the whole 9 yards: toys, clothes, big turkey, just the whole holiday feast. And that really was what opened the door and made her realize, oh, we're safe people. We bring God's love without judgment. Maybe she can trust us. So over time, we've continued to build a relationship with her. And the most recent kind of event in her life is that she's been going to counseling with a Christian counselor that we
That's
work
great,
with.
yeah.
And she just recently, she said that she's realized what her value is.
That's
and
so
she's
awesome.
beginning to work her way out.
See, that's what it's all about. And I believe that your story from being a child, growing up in knowing God, but fighting depression and all that, then I believe that was a God-ordained moment when you and your father ran into that 14-year-old girl who obviously was going through some of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And now to impress upon you that mission and that calling in life to help other women, men, and there's men and women that are being trafficked all the time.
Absolutely.
And so what we're doing is now reaching out to them and helping them understand the value. But through that, Mike, would you say that through this whole journey, now you've discovered your value?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what this is. I mean, this is your story.
Right.
This
It
is
is.
your story from beginning to today.
Yeah.
God gave all of this with purpose so that you would find your value, and now look how he's using you today.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Absolutely.
So, well, I appreciate you sharing your story, man, and I know that the church appreciates it. So this is Mike. Make sure you get to know him. I know we're watching the video because he's out of town today, but when he comes back, make sure you shake his hand and thank him for his story. All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks, man.